What's up, you sweet fancy children of the Rebellion? This is Nikki G from Better Commander, and today we're doing a Precon breakdown on Rebellion Rising. Listen, everybody listening to this right now is a gorgeous lover of cardstock. You're a bunch of gamers. We have a new Precon, alright? We're going to dive into it. Let's talk about new cards. We're going to talk about reprints. We're going to talk about suggestions for upgrading the deck. But first, take a New York minute to squeak up to the like and subscribe buttons and show them some love. Listen, I don't have any sponsors. I don't have a Patreon, dude. Just hit the like button. That's all I want. Alright, let's get right into it. I'm not wasting time today. We got Neyali, Sun's Vanguard. 2 red and a white for a legendary creature, human rebel. It's a 3/3. Attacking tokens you control have double strike. Whenever one or more tokens you control attack a player, exile the top card of your library. During any turn you attacked with a token, you may play that card. Alright, I'm going to say this right off the bat. This is a very powerful card. Why does this look like one of those Xbox toys, the Skylanders? Remember Skylanders with Spyro the Dragon? They all kind of look the same too. They had big giant hands, they had rocks for hair and stuff like that. You know, this commander is an archetype all its own. It's a go-wide combat strategy with tokens. The commander provides a little card advantage. Note that the attacked with a token clause in the second ability doesn't count tokens that enter the battlefield tapped and attacking, like myriad tokens. So you won't exile the card unless you actually declare a token as an attacker. That's the way I understand it based on prior rulings. Listen, I could be wrong about it. There's no rulings on this yet because it hasn't been released. Also, you can't play the card if Neyali gets destroyed or is otherwise removed. It's her ability that allows you to play the exiled cards. At least that's what I think. Listen, again, I might be wrong. I'm not a judge. I'm just a mortal man with an appropriate amount of blood in my body. Alright, then we got this other face commander. We got Otari, Sun's Glory. Listen, I don't know if I'm saying this right. 3 red and a white for a legendary creature. It's a phoenix. 3/3 with flying, lifelink, and haste. Pretty good rate. Whenever Otari, Sun's Glory attacks, you get an experience counter. Then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. And as 2 red and a white, tap an untapped rebel you control, return Otari from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is an interesting card that I'm sure we'll see play in the 8 Calamity decks out there. You understand what I'm saying? It seems kind of generic. It's not a bad card at all. I would definitely build around Neyali. It hits that 4-mana sweet spot where you have a commander that's generating card advantage and gives you a clear build path. Let's take a look at some of the new cards for the deck. Oh, look at this thing. It's a Glimmer Lens. 1 and a white for an artifact. Equipment. It has 4 Mirrodin. So this, I'll read this the first time. I'm not going to read it after this. When this equipment enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 red rebel creature token, then attach this to it. Whenever equipped creature and at least one other creature attack, draw a card. It has equipped for 1 and a white. Other than the token created, I'm not sure what this card and the rest of the equipment cards are doing in this deck. Although, honestly, that's a flavor you could build into. The 4 Mirrodin ability, along with older living weapon cards, could fill out a pretty dope deck archetype with the usual equipment payoffs with Neyali's the commander. This is an interesting card in an equipment deck, but there's no buff for the creature other than drawing a card. And we got Staff of the Storyteller, 1 and a white for an artifact. When Staff of the Storyteller enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Whenever you create 1 or more creature tokens, put a story counter on Staff of the Storyteller, has white and tap, remove a story counter from Staff of the Storyteller, draw a card. Jesus, I said story a lot of times there. I know this is supposed to be Thrun in the art, right? But he looks surprisingly like the dad from Dinosaurs, which was a sitcom in 1991. Nobody probably remembers that. I like this card a lot. White card advantage. Really sweet in a token deck to generate some card draw. Oh man, then we got the Roar of Resistance. 1 and a red for an enchantment. Creature tokens you control have haste. I like that in this deck. Whenever 1 or more creatures attack, you may pay 1 and a red. If you do, creatures attacking your opponents and or planeswalkers they control get +2/+0 until end of turn. This is really specific. It's a niche commander card. It works great in Neyali though. That +2/+0 when you have double strike is pretty dope. You need a lot of token producing effects, but if you do, and if you're building into Neyali, then you probably will, you're good to go. Having haste is very powerful. It's like a surprise haymaker. I love the art on this thing. Magic the Gathering has just become like a mech maker. You got Volshock Factory, 2 and a red for an artifact. Tap, add red, put a charge counter on Volshock Factory. 2 and a red, tap, sacrifice Volshock Factory, create an XX colorless Golem artifact creature token with haste, where X is the number of charge counters on Volshock Factory, activate only as a sorcery. So this is another 3-mana rock with upside and downside. This needs red mana and makes red mana. Great early game. These guys are just playing Legos in the factory, dude. I love it. Now this, my friends, is a real magic card. Clever Concealment, 2 white for an instant, has Convoke. Any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. I'm not sure if this will be an instant commander staple, but I think it should be. This is one of the best protection pieces I've seen in Commander in a long time. This rewards the big board state we want out there with Convoke and simultaneously protects your entire board. If there's a board wipe or the dreaded farewell, all your stuff is phased out, dude. I'm a fan of phasing due to the rules behind indirect phasing. Take your equipment with you and your enchantments and all that stuff, and how much protection this affords. This can hit any non-land permanent. This is great. Kemba's Banner, 3 and a white for an artifact equipment. It has the 4 mirrored in text. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. It has equipped for 2 and a white. This is kind of an interesting card. The more I see of these 4 mirrored in equipments, the more I like the concept. It's basically living weapon anyways, but you get a little 2/2 instead of a 0/0 germ. This one is a little overcosted. I like it in a lot of decks though. Hexplate Wallbreaker. This gets the prize for having the art with the animal that looks most like a pug dog. 3 red for an artifact equipment. Has the 4 mirrored in text. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Whenever equipped creature attacks, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, untap each attacking creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase equipped for 3 and a red. This is very expensive, but in a combat-centered equipment deck, you're usually cheating the equip cost anyway. Think about this in Sir Gwyn or any of those decks. This is going to be a decent budget card in those decks if it doesn't go up. Extra combat effects usually get pretty expensive. Now, Gold Warden's Gambit is a pretty interesting card. It's 6 red for a sorcery, has affinity for equipment. Create 5 2/2 red rebel creature tokens. They gain haste until end of turn. For each of those tokens, you may attach an equipment you control to it. Not sure what deck this goes in yet, but it seems like a late game creature haymaker in an equipment deck. You get a big board wipe or something, all your creatures are gone. Hey, your creatures are back and they're wearing equipment, you're ready to rock. Alright, so what about reprints in this deck? Well, one sticks out above all the others, and that's Flawless Maneuver. 2 and a white, it's an instant. If you control a commander, you may cast the spell without paying its mana cost. Creature you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Creatures, I should say. Fantastic card when facing a board wipe or just swinging into a wall of, whatever. The great thing about this card is that you can cast it for free when your commander's out there. These cards are so game warping, but this is a solid protection piece. There's a theme in this deck, sub-theme, where you have these protection pieces. This is probably one of the best ones out there besides Teferi's protection. I mean, look at that maneuver, dude. These guys got their swords. They're all ready to go. I don't know what the heck they're doing. It's flawless. Elspeth Tyrell. Take a minute to appreciate this art. This is the way my ex-girlfriend's grandmother looked at me when I first introduced myself to her. She's like, what do you do for a living? 3 white for a legendary planeswalker, Elspeth. +2, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. Alright. -2, you create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Now we're talking. -5, destroy all other permanents except for lands and tokens. Starting loyalties 4. This thing was approaching about $10. It's pretty great in a token deck. I think it's a little outclassed in Commander nowadays, where all of our mana values are kind of skewed lower. I'm not sure I'd run this if it wasn't included in the deck though. 5 mana is quite a bit. I would build toward more impactful tokens. These little 1/1s aren't going to get you very far. Alright, then you got Court of Grace. This is where Judge Judy does all of her best work. 2 white for an enchantment. When Court of Grace enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. If you're the monarch, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying instead. This is a pretty good token producer. It introduces the monarch, which everybody loves, and can be pretty impactful if you keep it. Alright, so there are also a bunch of kind of stapley reprints. Path to Exile, Generous Gift, you got Boros Charm. These are all great cards to get if you don't have them. Kind of makes this deck a little better for newer players. Overall, this deck's themes are pretty solid. I'm kind of mystified why they went with an equipment sub-theme instead of just leaning into tokens. But since they did, there are ways you can build into that. Both commanders want masses of tokens, so I don't know if it's just a Boros thing or what. They just can't get away from equipment. Honestly, if I wanted to build Neyali, which I do, I would just pick up the card and slot in a bunch of token producers, anthem, and protection pieces. But what if we want to upgrade this thing? Well, how about a bunch of suggestions? You can go nuts. I don't know what you want to do with your life. I would remove the equipment sub-theme, but if you want to keep it, that's fine too, buddy. You do you. I'm not trying to control your life, dude. There are enough equipments that make tokens on ETB that you could lean into that with metal craft and equipment payoffs and just go nuts. But hey, I do have some thoughts on cards that could be great in this deck, and let's talk about Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. 2 red for a legendary creature Goblin Shaman. It's a 2/2 with haste. Has tap. Create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So this has been a $10 card in the past. So you're like, Nikki G, why you keep telling me $10 cards, dude? I know this card's good. Listen, I wanted to highlight that this is about $5 right now due to a list printing with the old art. The card I'm showing you right here. I mean, you can make measly goblin tokens, right? But why not make tokens of your bigger creatures and slap them into battle with double strike? Or how about Delina Wild Mage? 3 and a red for a legendary creature Elf Shaman. It's a 3/2. Whenever this lady attacks, choose target creature you control, then roll a d20. 1 through 14, you create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary, and it has at the end of combat, exile this creature. And 15 through 20, create one of those tokens, you may roll again. It's kind of a cool card. Makes a bunch of combos, makes tokens you can slap in, you make copies of your commander if you want to get all nuts. This card comes up a lot. Jaxus the Troublemaker, 3 and a red for a legendary creature, human warrior. It's 2/3. Has red and tap, discard a card, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery. Also has Blitz for 1 and a red. What a sweet card. This can power out some bigger creatures, make some nasty tokens that can swing in with double strike with Neyali on the field. This guy's got my favorite hairstyle on all of Magic the Gathering, Duke Ulja of Raven God. 4 red and a white for a legendary creature, human noble soldier. It's a 5/5. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and myriad until end of turn. Myriad is fantastic for this commander. Each of those tokens gets their ETB and also benefit from the double strike clause. This guy gives haste as well, which this deck is sorely lacking and could definitely use. Now you gotta understand, I've been around the world, you know what I'm saying? And some of the most dangerous people I've ever met are flutists. We got the Furbolg Flutist, 4 red for a creature giant bard. It's a 4/4. Enthralling Performance. When this guy enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature you don't control, untap it. It gains haste and myriad until end of turn. Look at this guy ripping that sweet Jethro Tull flute solo going up on one leg, dude. The ladies are losing it in the background. I saw them in a park in the year 2000, dude, in New York. Anyways, you got this myriad thing going on, and you get copies of your opponent's favorite characters out there. Consider myriad cards for Neyali. They might work well. These idiots out there, the Mirage Phalanx. 4 red for a creature, human soldier. It's a 4/4 with Soul Bond. As long as this guy's paired with another creature, each of those creatures has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature, except it has haste and loses Soul Bond. Exile it at the end of the combat. Again, doubling our ETBs, throwing a beefy Mirage Shield guy with double strike into combat. Pretty good. Alright, one more myriad guy. We got these Elturel Survivors. 3 and a red for a creature tiefling peasant. It's a 0/4 with trample and myriad. As long as this guy is attacking, it gets +X+O, where X is the number of lands defending player controls. These are literally a bunch of horny peasants out there just charging away from the moderators on Reddit, dude. Alright, then you've got the Space Marine Devastator. 3 and a white for a creature, Astartes Warrior. It's a 3/3 with Squad 2. As an additional cost to cast this guy, you may pay 2 any number of times. When it enters the battlefield, create that many tokens that are copies of it. Has Grav Cannon, dude. Of course he's got a Grav Cannon. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. So this is an interesting token making card here. Also a good thing to copy with our other effects like old Kiki Jiki. And our next card. Heat Shimmer is 2 and a red for a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it has haste, and at the beginning of the end step, exile this permanent. So this can get your opponent's stuff as well if they have a better board position. You gotta exile at the end of turn, but then you can get all the ETBs and you can bang in with double strike. And since we're running some protection pieces, let's talk about an underrated card named Rootboard Defenses. 2 and a white for an instant. Populate. You're gonna have tokens out there, dude. You might as well populate. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. This is great in a token deck. I don't know why they didn't include it. Actually, I do know why they didn't include it. They don't want you to populate. Population control. The lizard people, they live on the dark side of the moon. Alright, last card I want to mention, I don't know if this card's any good or not, but I thought it would be a great fit in a token deck where you want to build big tokens. You got Angelic Ascension, 1 and a white for an instant. Exile target creature or planeswalker. Its controller creates a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. So exile one of your 1/1s, exile one of your 2/2s, 4 Mirrodin tokens at the last opponent's end step, and you can bang in with a bigger flying token next turn, or just kill an opponent's thing and deal with that token that it creates. It's a little bit versatile, and I've thought this was an interesting interesting card since it was revealed back in M21. So listen, I gotta go play Dead Space on my PS5, alright? I'm not gonna do a budget upgrade. I'm not doing a $10,000 upgrade. I'm just giving you some ideas to make this deck uniquely yours. This commander you can build into has a lot of ways you can go. Overall, I think Neyali is very powerful. I dig it. There are enough big token producers to make this an interesting deck. The deck as a whole has some really interesting cards itself and some really good reprints. Flawless Maneuver is great, and as a new card, Clever Concealment is almost as good. I think the value is here for a newer player to flesh it out and run with either of these themes, either the 4 mirrored in tokens or just tokens themselves. I think a good mix of small token producers, copy effects, protection effects will make Neyali really shine. Interesting, powerful commander. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'm just going to laugh maniacally while I read them. This is Nicky G from Better Commander, signing off.